Hello, everybody! If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, is my one and only co-host from his same location he's been in for the entire time we've been doing this show. It's Tom. What's up, buddy?
Hello, friends.
Tom, when are you going to get some paintings on that blank white wall? It's been 7 years now, and you're still just nothing up there.
I know. It's just empty. It's empty. I mean, my desk has tons of stuff on it.
Don't.
Boom. Desk.
Very nice. Very nice.
Desk.
Gonna make everybody sick.
I know, it's gonna be great.
All right. Well, good. I'm glad, Tom. I've seen your pictures of you hobbying this week. You've been getting after it. I'm proud of you. All right. Tonight we're going to be talking about what makes a good Warscroll. And I'm really excited about this conversation. You know, you and I talked a little about this as we were talking about show topics, and I was like, no, this is an idea that's kind of been gestating in my head for a while. And, like, I've got something to say. And we're going to talk about it here.
Do you like my picks?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, so what are our picks for good Warscrolls? Well, you'll have to stay tuned to find out. But first, of course, the news. Did Tom remember bring up the news?
It's been a slow week this week.
There's stuff. What are you talking about? I got like 50 images to go through, Tom.
No, I mean, it's generally been a slow week. There haven't been any really large announcements. I mean, we have this rumor engine. You can show that.
We do. It's an Imperial. It's a Chaos. It is a Warhammer 40k Trader Chaos Knight, like the Knights. Yeah. And it's also going to be in the other video we have later.
Yes. So we have a 40k thing. That's fine. And then, but more importantly, let's talk about the new model.
So do you want to start with the silhouette? Is that where we're starting with, or you want to talk about the story anniversary model?
Store model. The anniversary model.
Okay.
Because we have a clear picture of that.
So I'm really excited about this new AOS Inquisitor guy. Yep. He's got this amazing sword. I don't know what this. I don't know what his backpack or that symbols mean.
Weird.
But it's super amazing. Okay, no, look. This is the 40k model. This is the Cruel Boys model. I have both of them up. Are we for real over here? I mean, are we for real? Like, look, this guy's fine. He's cool. I like his bird. I like his bird friend.
Do you know what it harkens out to me? Is the old Gitz like boss with the squig in front of him? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. Yes.
Like the shield at a distance. The first I was like, does he have a squig and a bird? No, he doesn't. It's literally just the shield.
Right.
Womp, womp, womp.
Yep. And this guy, he's like, whatever. It's. I mean, seriously, can we go back to this 40k guy? This guy's incredible. I want this guy in my AOS army. I just don't put the backpack on. Done and dusted. Right. And I mean, this guy's amazing. Like, this guy is truly amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty sharp. For those that were complaining, I have moved my mic closer, so let's see if that helps you at all.
There you go. Now you've got the sound issues. You sounded fine to me when I recorded, but this is the problem. Whoever knows.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
We did like 4 recordings beforehand just to make sure it was not going to sound like trash.
We did. We did. And apparently it still does.
It's such is life. We're trying, folks. All right, so anyways, sweet new 40k guy, very nice and competent Cruel Boy are the store anniversary models. Great.
Yep.
Your store is in February, by the way, Tom. I want you to get me that 40k guy next month.
I know he is. I've already I swung by and got the Orky boss.
Yeah. Yeah.
The AOS one, and my son was like, "You got me a new model for my army," and I was like, "Yeah." I mean, I did. It's his army.
There you go.
And then we got the new weird silhouette model preview stuff that dropped.
Yeah, so let's talk silhouette. At first, I had thought this was going to be I thought it was a 40k thing because I thought it was just another Chaos Space Marine because you can't see it in this image that they have here that I borrowed. But it's the top of his staff is like an extremely old rumor engine. One of the oldest is still unanswered rumor engines. But no, like this, the other one, the other silhouetted image is quite clearly the 40K model because you can see it's a dude in Terminator armor.
Indeed, it is.
And so, like, okay, this must be the AOS guy. He's got a big chaos symbol thing up on the top of his staff. So, great. It's a Chaos Sorcerer dude. New Chaos Sorcerer guy. And he's the Warhammer Plus model. So, fantastic.
Oh, do you think so?
Yeah, I mean, yes, yeah, I know so, because that's literally how they announced it. It's going to be the 2 new models for this year for signing up for Warhammer Plus.
Oh, interesting. So when do I order, or I've already picked if I have Warhammer Plus, I've already picked that model, right? Is that how that works?
I don't know, probably. Maybe you, like, re-up again and you get the
remember.
next model? I assume something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Weird. Yeah, I wouldn't mind another sorcerer.
Sure.
Chaos sorcerer.
Sure.
So
he might have maybe he's got like a bird head and he's a cool Zinch dude. Maybe he's, I don't know, he has a corn bloodletter skull type of thing on his staff. So maybe he's a Slanesh sorcerer because they hate corn.
Ooh, they do.
Just saying.
They do. Or maybe there's a bunch of different bits that they can swap in and out because it's chaos.
Sure.
So that would be neat too. So new model, awesome. Obviously, we had the new Warhammer Plus sneak peek. We've talked about that.
Yep.
Or no, and then I'll take number 2 on the podium for best model of the year.
Sure, with the crab.
Yeah.
Yes, we got the crab up to number 2. The crab. The internet and democracy is broken. That's what this should teach us.
Let's be honest, though. Bellacore technically is an AOS model, too.
Sure.
Because it actually dropped with AOS books, not 40K books.
Yeah, I'm claiming that. I think we get this one. This breaks the streak of 4 years. It's sort of a half streak. It's like a tie, but we didn't lose, and that's what's important.
We didn't lose. Right, and we got number 2. So we tied at number 1 and got number 2. What more could we ask for?
I mean, number 3 was High Marshal Helbrecht, which I do think is an amazing model, and trust me, can be an AOS model if you put a little effort into it. But it's just always going to be the case that's what it's like. Where we're not at the top of the charts. It's funny because I did read the article where they showed the previous winners, and my goodness, it's just 40K on top of 40K previously. So I consider this a win. A tie is a win in my book. But yes, the crab, that's a silly thing. Obviously, that's not the second best model of the year. Like, obviously. It's a fun model. I like the crab, but
he's really popular.
Sure. It's the Bodie McBoatface of voting. Like, that's all I'm saying.
Yes. Sure, totally.
Yeah. It's memeable. That's a good point. High Marshal Helbrecht did spawned a million memes as well. So, also, there you go. I side with Battle Barn. He said getting second wins the tiebreaker for first. I like the way you think.
Yep, agree with that completely.
All right, you want to talk about this video full of all the previews? Because I have screenshots out of the whole video.
Sure, let's do it.
All right. So the other thing they revealed was models, lots of models. Which, by the way, that wasn't lots of models. You showed like 7 models. That's not lots of models in a year. Okay, like let's not overstate things.
They were throwing a big deal, and I was like, so this is the releases for the next 2 to 3 months?
Yeah, like the next week. You get 7 models, dude. Like, I want to. If you pulled back and showed me a couple armies, you know what was lots of models? The original Daughters of Cain rock and roll trailer. When I saw that, I was like, this is lots of models. We're getting some stuff here. Okay?
Yep.
This is less models than in that one army's reveal. So get out of here with your lots of models. Anywho. We start with this obliterator weapon. I just grabbed random screenshots. Like, I had to go through the video and pause at appropriate seconds. I think I got basically everything that matters.
Yep.
Like, this is the obliterator hand. Probably a new weapon option on the big knight. Or maybe new obliterators. I'll take either. Could be either. It's fine. Let's talk about this. That's just a 40K thing. Let's talk about your new Night Haunt boy. Your new spooky boy over here. Spooky boy with a lantern. He's got his little thin. You can see his little ghostly thin hand. So he's like, it's so obviously a night haunt.
I mean, this it is so obviously night haunt, which raises all kinds of questions to me.
Okay.
It makes me wonder if this is just a replacement for our spellcaster, who only came in the box.
Yeah.
Like in the one box. Does
that
make sense?
Yeah.
And I suspect that it's not actually a new original model, but it's this guy right here. That's all like has a broken arm, whatever his name, the Guardian of Souls. Because we had two different versions of him. If you'll remember, we had the version that came in the box that nobody could get, and then we had the store exclusive birthday version that had different rules that everybody wanted, and then also nobody could get. And so I wonder if this is just an update of that model.
Probably,
that's kind of what my.
This is your one new model with your Night Haunt book.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's the one new Night Haunt model, and I just wonder if it's a swappable.
You're getting a new foot spellcaster that'll probably absorb some of the rules and concepts of that old model. Yes, because he's got his little lantern.
Yep. Right, and so that's probably what we're getting, folks. I'm tucked in to expect that our Christmas gift came early, and that's Nagash.
Sure. Until proven otherwise, my belief is that what AOS will get this entire year is a good number of books, which I'm happy about. That's what we need. Written in the new way, where they're thematic and appropriate and strong and all of that, and narratively top-driven, top-down design, which is what I want. And along with those, we get one model.
I think that we might see some endless spell boxes. Like it wouldn't surprise me if we got like an IDK. Like for IDK, it wouldn't surprise me if they got their own endless spell box.
Maybe, but I see where you're saying, but I'll give those a strong maybe at most. But anyways,
maybe indeed.
Here's your new ghost.
I think we'll get a new army later this year, though.
Yeah, sure. That's what I'm saying. Until we eventually get the new army, everything is just going to be book one model, book one model, book one model,
book one model, or book dual box with a new model
in each
for each army.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I.e. Ideneth and Fire Slayers.
Sure. Yep. Exactly. All right. This one is a very fuzzy image, but it's an elf guy. It's a new Eldar guy. You can tell when it spins around. This is a Chaos, again, Trader Knight. This is definitely a Trader Knight. They spin around and show you more. I'm hoping it's like an Armiger-sized Knight, because I don't have like a Chaos Armiger-sized kit. So that's kind of what their pipes look like. That is to say, the good guys' pipes. That very much feels like the Armiger-sized pipes. So hopefully that's what it is. There's another image where you see like a weird bird or something on top of spikes poking through his shoulder. So cool. But we're definitely getting a Chaos Trader Knight kit. This bone thing, this bone stuff here, this one that looks like a bunch of bone, I don't know, with a spine, excited me for a second until I realized it was Malgan Ra or whatever his name is, the Dark Reaper Phoenix Lord. I remember fighting that guy back in like 1998. I was playing against this dude, I think.
Yeah, I thought that was the OBR. Like I thought that was the OBR one-off, and then everybody started talking about that.
Yeah, because they continue spinning it, and you see a shoulder pad as well. I was so excited for a second, and like it's very obviously an update of that model. He's a cool looking dude. He's a cool character, so that's fine. But yeah, it's the Dark Reaper Phoenix Lord Malgan Ra or whatever. I'm probably mispronouncing that because who knows.
Conversion potential, or possibly you could take some bits off of it for OBR.
Look, I'm just excited that that Kavwin will finally have a model, so that's nice. That's a joke just for Tom.
That's a good one.
All right, next AOS thing. So the this clearly daughter of Cain. What is this, Tom? This is a sister of Slaughter, right? It's a sister of Slaughter. So what is this? What is this, Tom?
Maybe.
I mean, that's what it is. This is literally the rumor engine from last week, by the by.
I know it was.
Yeah.
I mean, so if it's a sister of Slaughter,
yes,
it looks like one.
Yes.
Then it's probably an Underworld warband.
Okay.
Like, we had one Daughters of Cain warband,
Yep.
right?
Uh-huh.
But it was all witch elf based, wasn't it? There were no
No,
sisters
there's a
of
sister in
Slaughter.
there.
Was there?
Yep.
Then what this probably is this is some limited release model, right?
Could
Or
be.
is this like some people think it's Dark Eldar?
Okay.
But I mean, it's literally like the hilt of that whip. By the way, is identical to the hilt of the Daughter's whips.
Yeah.
But those
yeah.
that
The dagger has a
dagger is
similar
way
look as
longer.
well. It is, but the
But
base of it has the same. Like, there's a lot of the same iconography here as with standard Daughters of Cain. Okay?
Somebody thinks it could be a Cursed City hero.
Could be.
Or like an expansion.
Sure. Could be that.
That's a good call. I like that call.
Could it be, Tom, a Daughters of Cain single hero for a Daughters of Cain release?
I mean,
I'm just saying. Is this our one hero for that?
I mean, it could be a sister hero because we don't have any of those.
Right.
I mean, if it is, let me just say I'm really angry.
I was thinking about it today, and I was like, I was like thinking about the one hero / release a book thing when I was thinking about the earlier guy, the Nighthaunt guy, and then I've scanned through these images, and I was like, wait a minute, we don't have like a Sister of Slaughter hero.
No, I mean it could be, but
I hope it's a Cursed City expansion hero. That'd be cool.
GW, you're fired. If it is, because the real thing that we all want is we want a Canary hero.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
Like, give us a Canary hero. Don't give us a stupid Sisters of Slaughter hero. Because we have a Slaughter Queen, which is kind of a Sisters of Slaughter. Yeah.
Again, like this would be okay, sure. Well, I guess we'll see. Tyrannid thing, cool. Like, there's a bunch of quick shots of a Tyrannid thing, some big Tyrannid creature. So I don't know Tyrannids enough to know what any of these things are. Some other 40k guy. I don't know what he is, but he's a 40k guy. Because the image before this, you see the top of his staff, and it's like got the hazard stripe tubes on it. So, oh my goodness, Slaughter Hag. That's what that was just said in the chat. That feels like too dead on to be wrong. Like, doesn't that feel like what they would name that?
Yes, that does feel kind of appropriate.
Like,
unfortunately,
if it comes out, it's that. I want full credit assigned here to yes, because you nailed it. I'm not claiming credit. I'm saying this is absolutely the moment.
This gentleman in the chat. Yes.
Yes, exactly. All right. All right. So some 40k dude. Okay, fine, whatever. Can I take a moment here to talk about how bad I feel for the heavy metal paint team? Okay. Who pour a lot of work into their craft and try to do a really good job at getting models painted to a very high standard. And then some jerks show up and take pictures of these things at like ultra close range and show every brush stroke and inconsistency in the model. And I'm just like, oh man, what a letdown that has to be.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, at any rate, I was watching this, I was looking at all this, and I was like, geez, that really is terrible to have your work photographed at that kind of level. None of us would want our paint jobs photographed like this. None of us.
No one.
Unless you're like Dave Caldwell. He's the only human on the planet who can take pictures of his miniatures this close, and it works okay. All right. So who's this guy, Tom? Is this just another angle of your Nighthaunt hero, dude? The dude with the book? Mr. Book and Candleman? You see a candelabra in the sort of image before this.
Yeah, maybe. Part of me still wants it to be, because it's like the priestly guy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see the candelabra, and he's got the book that's clearly open with like the sort of illuminated script, as it were, right?
I mean, I think so, because that still has the ghostly hand, right?
Looks like it. Looks like there's some ghostly crap going on. Yes.
Because it looks like a ghostly hand is turning the page. If it's not, I would love for it to be like a Priest of Sigmar, but that's just not what that like. It looks like that forearm is super like sickly, ghosty, and it looks like the robe on the bottom left corner is teal, like how they like to paint. So I say all of that to say it's probably just the same ghosty boy.
Okay,
that's what I'm guessing.
Sure. And then the new avatar of Cain for Eldar.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Like the worst kept secret. Maybe it's 2 Nighthaunt heroes, Tom. Maybe we'll break trend and you'll get 2 heroes in a book. Replacing the replacing of the Guardian of Souls with Nightmare Lantern or whatever, that's just a freebie. Or maybe he has like an alt build with a book.
Well, I have not encountered one of those Guardian of Souls that have not had a broken arm.
Sure.
So, like, the way that it was sculpted, it's just inherently broken.
Yep.
So,
Willard, that would be a bloody hand. That would be a red... hold on, which hand is that? No, it's his left hand, isn't it? Yeah, it's his left hand. I was hoping it'd be a red right hand, but no, it's not. It's his left hand.
No, definitely left hand.
Doesn't work as well. All right, so anyways, there's stuff. There you go. That's everything in the video. What did we learn from the video? 40K's got a lot of models coming, son. And it's time to lower your expectations for AOS.
Get ready to start buying books.
Yeah. Yep. All right. What other news items do we have? Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Then let's go to pick of the week. Tom, start us off. I know you have a pick here. I already put it in the notes, and I gave it to you to be the freebie win here.
Oh, did you?
Yes. Now, it's what we were all talking about. Somebody who came back after a long absence has been on a similar path to yourself.
Did somebody come back?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I'm kidding. Yes, Doom and Darkness is back, folks.
There we go.
And he has a wonderful video. Check it out. It's great. Dude, when I went through a rough season earlier this year, and he reached out to me even when he wasn't producing content. He reached out to me, and he's wonderful, and I want to just spruik his new stuff.
Yeah.
Because he's back, and he's back like. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more coming, folks.
Sure. You know, it's funny because he talked about... One of the things he mentions in his video is, like... It's funny because one of the things he talked about is the hobby being an escape for him. And, to sort of...
Right.
It's the easiest thing to do, and he was sort of using it as an escape mechanism. And he said, step back from yourself and, stand behind yourself and look at yourself and think, is this the way you want to be spending your life? I have a simple answer to you, Doom. Yes. Yes, it is. I am living my best life, Doom. Okay? I have 0 regrets. Leibniz's best of all possible worlds is being lived right here in this chair, homie. But the point that he makes is important.
That's you. It's
exactly.
Like everybody has to make that.
Exactly.
Everybody has to make that evaluation.
What I think the thing that he stumbled upon was he was hobbying and playing how he felt somebody else, how they, amorphously, right?
How he thought they
would want him to be.
That's exactly right.
Yes. And that's clearly wrong. And so I support him 100%. Like, you have to find, it is a hobby, and you have to find your speed, your way of engaging. If painting 40 hours a week isn't appropriate for you, then don't do it. If playing a ton of games, if going to a bunch of tournaments isn't for you, if it's causing you to be not happy, then don't do it. Like, it should be a thing that creates happiness. He talks a lot through all that in the video, so it was very good. It's just kind of a rant of him discussing where he's been and, sort of where his thoughts are at, and I thought it was very healthy. So, yeah, good.
Check it out. I highly recommend it.
For myself, I have a different pick of the week. My pick of the week is for the Honest Wargamer, Rob, and it's with the Iron Gutsman. And I really liked their discussion. It's a lot of bagging on Seraphon, which I fully support. So if you are a Seraphon player, sorry. That's not great for you. But hey, that's life. But it's just a really good conversation. I thought Iron Gutsman hits on a lot of points. I think he's a very insightful member of the community, and I really like the show. So there you go. All right. So, Tom, let's talk hobby time, shall we? Hobby time. You've actually been working on stuff, Tom. What have you been working on?
Dude, it's been fire this week. I got all of my army for for Holy Wars, which is about a month and a half away. I got it all built and based, or not, built and then primed, zenithal, and then all of my colors laid down with my airbrush. Most of the bases are done except for my crystals. Man, I've been killing it. Like, just plowing through models.
I love it. You're back in.
I'm back in, and so that should be done for I even did an army terrain piece this week, yeah, so that all got done, and I'm happy about that. And then, what else did I work on? Oh, and then I went to the club this weekend. One of the local stores had 12,000 points on the table. So I came and just spectated and palled around for a bit, and then met some new folks out of Richmond, which is about 15-20 minutes away from here, where I live, and went and hung out at their club on Sunday, and went out on Monday and took Nagash for a test run, and taught one of their guys plays primarily super competitive 40K, and has been thinking about getting into AOS, and so he'd been playing some AOS, but not kind of meaningfully.
Sure.
And so he's a big elf player, so he wanted to do Lumineth to give them a shot, and I was like, that's not the right place to start, but let's do it. So he took, we built a list for him, and we rolled some dice. Nagash is brutal, as predicted. And then tomorrow I'm doing it again. So I'm headed out there and going to be rolling dice with him. He's going to give Doc a shot, and I'm going to let him grind on Nagash a little bit more.
Nice. Good. Awesome. Yeah. For myself, my hobby time has been incredibly busy. I painted up this little girl here. This is out of the, what is she from? She's from Red Harvest. There you go. She's one of the Red Harvest barbarians. And this is painted up for a tutorial for a video that I'm working on. And lots of fun stuff there. I want to say thank you to everybody who responded to the change video, to the sort of New Year's Day video. So many good ideas there. It was really helpful. It gave me a huge list, a lot of things to think about. I appreciate that the most common comment was fix your audio, so I'm working on that. And the hunt for artists goes on. I'm looking at a bunch of different people right now. It's just challenging because there's sort of a very particular style sense I have that I want the show to have and the channel to have. And so, not everybody has that style. That's not in any way a judgment on their art. Most of these people that are sharing stuff with me are totally awesome. It's just it's not necessarily the voice. So I painted her up. She's done. And then I have to put that tutorial together. I've got this big guy ready to go. He's going to be for a video as well. Chadakar, the Beast. He doesn't have his little dudes on the base because I don't like the little dudes. I didn't like him. I just wanted him alone.
I love those sycophants.
Yeah, I don't like the little dudes hanging out on bases. I like the model. Want this guy. Chadakar needs no one else. He's ready to rock. So I've got him painted up, and then I got sent another thing that I can't talk about yet. That'll come out next year. It's right here, and but it's not a GW thing. So there you go.
Oh.
Yeah, it's somebody else's thing. I'll figure out when I can talk about it, but it'll be. I'll record some fun stuff for that as well.
Nice.
But it's not a GW thing. Man, there's so much stuff on my table too. I've just got like too many big projects, man. It's there's more.
You got a board. You got a board to build for next month too.
And I need to build a stupid board. Yes. Okay. So at any rate, lots of hobby time. Going to be a very busy hobby time. I'm really trying to just like work on a lot of tutorial stuff. Like that's actually what I'm trying to grind on right now. Is like in these. Paint this stuff with a strong focus on making tutorials out of them, so I can work on making better tutorials, like experiment with stuff, right? So I'm like trying to 2-for-1 my hobby, if that makes sense, right? As these things are all hobby videos, my goal is to like I'm trying to work on them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So nice. There you go. Somebody said Infinity. No, it's not Infinity. I played Infinity like back in first edition. It's fine. It's not a game for me. I don't particularly love the models. I really don't like the game itself. That's not a judgment. It's just not a game for me. Like again, I think it's a good game. I just think it's not a game for me. So sorry everybody. But I did. I played Infinity for a while. I had a hacky army, so there you go. Still do. But there you go. They've been retired. Okay. Awesome. So that's hobby time. Tom, shall we get into the main topic?
Let's do this.
All right. Okay. So main topic. What makes a good war scroll? That is the question that we're going to talk about today.
It's a legitimate question.
Yeah. So I'm going to flip to my summary page here because I kind of have a couple of them.
Okay.
And I'm gonna lay down a thesis. Okay.
Okay. And then we're gonna test that based on what I picked as Warscrolls. What you and I picked.
Sort of. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So here's my thesis statement that I sort of set about with this. Right. 1. Points are an imperfect mechanism to represent a unit's value, and their adjustment cannot solve issues with many, most war scrolls.
Yep.
Okay? That's number 1. And I think this is diametrically opposed to how a lot of people think about this. Like, I've seen some people who I respect say things like, well, you know, there's got to be a correct points to make war scrolls, to make most war scrolls in the game worth it. And I just don't agree. I think that's a fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of the game.
It's a paradox because if you make something too cheap, like we've talked about this with the big whatever his name is, the Cygor or whatever.
Yeah.
Like back when there was like, yeah, sure, hypothetically like 75 points or whatever for like a 13 wound monster. But at that point, like, yes, there is a point where it's takeable, but you're not actually like you're going to be spamming this thing, not because it's a good war scroll, but because of your points to hit point ratio and grind, like forcing people to grind through that meat. Yeah. Like that doesn't make it a good war scroll.
Yes, there is exactly. There is a certain level we could like take war scrolls down to. Like, okay, you might say, well, Cygors are still behemoths, so they're going to be limited to 4 in your army, right? So even if there were 20 points each, would having 80 points of 4 of them actually mean anything? No. It's probably still no. But nonetheless, that's obviously never going to happen. That's stupid. They're never going to set points that low. 2, it then creates a very bad situation for them when they redo the War Scroll and redo the book, and it jumps up to 250 points where they rewrite the War Scroll and think it's worth it now. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. But then people are going to be much more angry when points go way down and then slingshot back up. Like, we all get angry at that. Okay.
And everybody's bought 4 of these Cygors for their armies.
Yeah, exactly. And then all of a sudden they have to shelve them. Like, it's a nightmare situation. And just think of what happened with Blight Kings, if you want proof in the pudding. I think Blight Kings are exactly correctly pointed at 250 now. I think that's where they should be. I think they're right at that.
Probably right. They may be a touch high. But when I say touch, like not more than 10% high, right? Like they're, 10, 15 points, 20 points, maybe too high. Maybe. Like,
but I think
yeah,
they're right in the right area. But the problem is people have just been like, oh, that's a nightmare. Why? Because they were so cheap at one point. Doesn't matter what they do now.
And people have like 40 of them on their shelf.
Right.
I have 20, and I love the number that I have. Right? Like, I have 20 painted, and I'm like, I don't want any more. That's great.
Yep. And so that's the challenge, right? There is just some floor that we can reasonably adjust points to. You know? Okay?
Yep.
And so, like, with things like Gits and Beasts and stuff that just have a book of bad war scrolls, all right, there's just so much we can do with points because we're going to hit some kind of reasonable floor where all of a sudden it just becomes a nightmare experience where the concept of the point system snaps and suddenly you have like 500 models on the table. I'm being hyperbolic, but that's the point, right?
I mean, but we've seen this before with people running like, what, 20 cockatrice armies or whatever? Like we've seen this occasionally with these spam, like where people are doing these spamable things. I mean, people like even the Bolt Boys or whatever, you know, people deploying like 18 units of Bolt Boys and 3 heroes or something.
Right. Yep. All right. So, and they are the reason I say that, like, do I think 30 pink horrors are good enough? Yes. I think they're still quite a good unit, even at their adjusted points cost. I think they're finally pointed in the neighborhood of correct. Maybe even still slightly low. They're still the best points to wound ratio in the game.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Some war scrolls will have value and be played at a wide variety of points because they either A, have good base rules regardless of other pieces, what I'll call modular power. B, fill a role necessary in the army, what I'll call functional power. Or C, pair with something to perform above their weight class, synergistic power. Okay? Right? Does this make sense to you, Tom, these 3 things I've identified? Basically, modular usefulness, functional utility and role filling, or unreasonable synergy. Right? Like, let's take one of the worst units in the game, Gore. Okay? A couple people in the comments have been talking about them. Like,
sure.
Gore are functionally, at the moment, one of the worst units in the game. They have no role, no nothing at all, right?
I'll just get closer to the mic for those that want me to turn me up.
Yes.
He doesn't have to do that.
Okay, so let's assume for a moment that I'm just going to imaginarily rewrite the Beast of Chaos book here, all right? Gore remain exactly the same. They are what they are. Okay? Nothing on the Gore scroll. Nothing on the Gore scroll war scroll changes. Okay?
Yep.
But instead, now we'll keep the shaman's ability to make them go faster and all of that kind of stuff. That's all any existing synergies are still around.
Yep.
But in addition, there is now a unique command ability that gives Gore a 5-up ward. Only Gore. Not on Gore, not best of Gore, just regular Gore. A 5-up ward. There is another unique ability that happens on a 3-up that makes it so every that they get +1 attack and every 6 to hit triggers a mortal wound. Okay. And then we'll throw in a third ability that is a teleport only for Gore. A Goreport. Okay.
I was going to say a Gore bush, but sure.
Okay, also good. That's solid. So, like, my point is, all of a sudden, like, even though that War Scroll's crap, and by the way, let's hold them at the same points. They are now, like 70 points for 10 or something, right?
Yep. Yep.
All of a sudden, you'd be like, yeah, Gore, good. Right?
Right.
And if you don't like my 3 exact buffs, pick your own 3 buffs. Pick your own skink-like synergistic nonsense buffs. Because skinks are terrible on their base scroll, but skinks are great because of their synergistic power. That's my point, right?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
All right.
Like, Iron Drakes are good, but
Telegort. Yeah, that's what it is. I'm sorry, everybody. It's totally Telegort.
Telegort. Oh, yeah, that's good. Telegort. That's a pretty good one. Yeah, so, like, Iron Drakes are good, but Iron Drakes with a Rune Lord are really good.
Yeah, exactly. right? Okay, so this is my premise, right? When they can interact with other war scrolls, that they can become synergistic. Autumn, I'm not actually recommending this as a fix. I'm just using it as an example to explain how much synergistic power can matter. It can take synergistic power can take something that is literally one of the worst war scrolls in the game, and make it played in every army because it's becomes so strong. That's all I'm meaning to say. I'm not meaning like, let's actually fix it.
Sometimes scrolls are played not because they're good. Sometimes scrolls are played because they synergize well with other things
and become good.
And they become good because of the other things, not because of what's inherently on the war scroll.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay, point the third. Good war scrolls can go unplayed if pointed too high, but bad war scrolls can never be pointed at a value where they will be played reasonably. Okay?
Yeah, unless GW drops the floor out from under them and then somebody spams them.
Right.
But even then, you're not actually playing the war scroll, you're playing bodies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're just playing spammy crap.
Bodies. Yeah, you're just spamming things to make people grind on.
Because we've gone so far off of the normal ratio of points to wounds, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So what I mean by this is points don't have to come into this discussion from this point on, because we'll reference it occasionally. But what I'm trying to say here is a good war scroll, you can define a good war scroll absent points. Because a good war scroll can only get pointed out of the market, right? But a bad war scroll can never get pointed into the market.
Not reasonably.
Right, yes. Not reasonably. Yes. Okay. If let's take something that I think everybody would agree is an amazing war scroll. Sentinels. All right?
I can't imagine.
Sure.
I almost picked those as one of my 5. I almost did.
I understand.
And I was like, no, everybody's going to, complain about it.
Sure. Okay. Sentinels are a good war scroll, right?
They're solid. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. They cost 1,000 points for 10 of them now. Are we ever going to see anybody play Sentinels? No. Okay.
Of course not.
Of course not. But that doesn't make them not a good war scroll. They're still a good war scroll, rules-wise. It's just they've been priced out of the market.
Right.
Right.
But you put the same things at 150 and everybody's like, I'm a buyer.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Okay. So that's my thesis.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the bad example. I want to start with the counterpoint, Tom. You ready? So before we get into the good, I want to do bad.
Sure.
And as the bad scroll, I have picked here, Tom, the steam tank. The non-hero steam tank. Okay? Like, just the stank. Your good old-fashioned, nothing special about it, steam tank. All right?
Yep.
All right. Yep. Now, this is a pretty terrible war scroll. All right? This thing is 195 points, Tom. It's almost 200.
Okay. Yep.
Okay? It's 12 wounds on a 3-up save. It is not a hero, as I mentioned. This is the non-hero one. Right?
You said it's 195?
195. Yep.
Okay.
With an 8 bravery. Which doesn't matter, because it's not a hero.
Yep.
It has no monster actions, because as though it tends to fill a monster-like role, it is not a monster. It's a war machine. Right. Which only hurts it.
Doesn't count for any of the monster actual capping things either for objectives.
Correct.
Yep.
Now, sure, when it dies, it doesn't give up a point, but okay. Right. It also can't choose to fight at the top of its profile, nor can I get bonus points out of it, which, as we've seen, is highly valuable in this go round of the GHB.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
It does basically no damage. So it averages less than 1 damage shooting outside of 8 inches. Okay.
Compare that to 10 Sentinels, which are less than this.
Sure. Compare that to 10 any shooters. It's ridiculous. It's not even close, right?
Yep.
No ability to use a command ability. It cannot use a command ability. It's not elite.
Right.
So you gotta have a hero around to support it. Yep. It counts as 2 models, not 5, like most other monsters. And it has no functional role in the army.
Right, and it, as somebody pointed out in the chat, it's over 12 wounds, so it can't get cover.
Correct.
It's not a hero, so it can't get lookout, sir. Yep.
Yep. So, like, this is a bad scroll. This is written
almost
badly.
No synergy in the army.
Correct. There's like, it synergizes with its own hero, and then a couple of things in like Tempest Eye or something, but it has minimal synergy, right?
Yep.
So it can't win on functional power. It's certainly not modular power, because you can't just send it off on its own and have it do something. And it's not synergistic power. It fails all 3 tests.
Right.
Right?
It's funny how you add the hero keyword to it. Are you going to do that next?
No, I did, because I do think that this thing has value when it's the hero version. Right.
Right, and that's what's so funny is that adding the hero keyword actually does like a lot of things to this.
Right. Right.
Like a shocking amount of things when you add the hero keyword to it.
Right. Yeah, because all of a sudden it can use command abilities on itself, and it can heroic recovery, and like there's things it can do, right? Like it also adds another ranged attack that's kind of decent.
Yeah, well, it can get an item, so you can give it a spell.
Yes,
book.
I can give it a spell book, so it can be a caster, which having a 3-up save caster in Cities of Sigmar is actually pretty valuable, right? Like, it completely changes the whole thing. But my point is, like,
can I make just a small point?
Yeah, hit me.
Thus is my argument for the Black Coach. Continue.
Yeah, fair enough. No, absolutely. But my point with the Steam Tank is it's just terrible because it doesn't do enough of something. Now, we're going to actually come later to a counterpoint, because you sent me a counterpoint to the Steam Tank. You can design something like this that is a good War Scroll. They just didn't here. This thing is ultimately a relic, right? It got its original rules, and basically they haven't changed. And they've been, like, these were barely passable in AOS 1, and they haven't changed since, and it ain't working now, right?
Right.
And so, yeah. Okay. All right. And yes, if you add the hero keyword, it takes up a hero slot, but okay. Cool, I got 6 of those. Like, I'm not hurting for that. That's fine. All right. So, good War Scroll potential traits. Here are things that I think are potential traits. Tell me what you think of these, Tom. 1, they use the game rules in a useful way.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, in other words, by using... They in some way interact with the game rules to lead you to success in the game. Right?
Yep.
That could be high damage. That could be ability to hold an objective, to survive, to move, whatever, right? All these kinds of things. Or just... interact, they might have some way that they act in a sort of orthogonal fashion. So think Sons of Bema, right? Their allegiance ability is it would be example of using the game rules in a useful way, right?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
They have some role in the overall army. Like, there's something you put them on the table to do besides exist.
Yep.
Right? They can fill a required capability in an overall strategy, damage, objective control, mobility, unique control enhancement, element, durability. I didn't say chaff, but chaff could be another one. Right?
Yep. Oh, I mean, some of my picks were chaff.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Mine too. And then, of course, the last reason they could be quote-unquote good. Now, what I mean by good here, this is where we got to talk about 2 different versions of good, right? Good in the sense of, like, efficient to play, not good as in, like, this is how War Scrolls should be written.
Right.
These are 2 separate discussions, right? I don't think busted War Scrolls should be written, but yes, they could just be busted.
Haha, Sentinels.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Sentinels are a good example, right? They're just busted.
Right, and the reason why is because A, ability on the War Scroll. The whole War Scroll isn't busted. There's A, ability that stands out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 2 that really stand out that together just make a mess of things.
Sure. And then it only gets worse because that is a synergistic unit as well in certain ways.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So this is the kind of traits. These are the markers, right? I think some people have asked us before in the comments, like, hey, I'm new. How do I tell what's a good War Scroll? Look for this kind of stuff, right? Like,
Yep.
ask yourself the question, what is this thing doing? When I purchase it, what is it doing? Does it have a role? Is it filling some functional purpose besides existing?
Yep.
Right?
There's all kinds of good content that needs to be made here for the Warhammer community.
Yeah. Oh, Willard said good rules versus good for the game. Thank you. That's, yes, exactly what I mean. That's perfect. Thank you, Willard. Okay. All right. You ready to get into some examples?
Yep.
I'm excited. So, Tom, you and I each put in some examples.
Yep. Did we pick any of the same Warscrolls?
No. No. We did not.
Good.
Yeah, it just worked out that way. So, there you go. All right. Next, or first, I guess. Examples. Frost Heart Phoenix. Tom, this was your pick.
It was.
I listed the things that I thought were important down here. Strong word save, so he's defensible, right?
Yep.
Powerful debuff, adds to the defense and adds to defense of your overall army in his neg 1 to wound aura. Strong command ability in a rerolling wounds that synergizes with another good unit and another good scroll, and like a very high mobility.
Yep.
What else?
He's also he's an independent operator.
Mm-hmm.
And so he doesn't need anything else for him to do his job. And so he can run off and do his own thing, or he can stay in the cluster and synergize with everything else that's already there. Technically, he's functionally broadcasting a like when used in conjunction with Phoenix Guard, he's also making them battle shock immune.
Mm-hmm.
So there's synergy going on, but there's also independence. He's a hero, so you can give him an item, you can make him a spellcaster. You can do a bunch of other things with him as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So he has good solid damage for a 315 point model.
Right.
I also included the I said either of the Phoenixes because I think both of them have a role now. Does that make sense?
It does. I think the Frosty is clearly everybody's pick for like the hotness, but yes.
Sure.
I agree. I think they're both good scrolls.
Yeah, I ran the Fire Phoenix this fall to good effect. I didn't have a Frost, and it did work. So
yeah. I mean, when I look at this, it's a classic example of a strong hero scroll, right?
Yeah.
Modular, independent actor with a good utility debuff, or good utility debuff or buff for the things around it. Well, both in this case. In the Battleshock community, if he wants to operate with his friends, or debuff if he's operating against the enemy. Right, and then the mobility to be where he needs to be. It's everything you want in a hero.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So Coach asked if this is good without the hero. The answer is no. And the reason why is because he loses the ability. He suffers then from all the problems that the steam tank does. I mean, he's still a monster, but he can't issue commands and all that. But even more offensively, he loses the ward save when he's not a hero, and he loses the synergy with other Phoenix Guard and Battleshock community and all that. Yep. So the answer is when he's not a hero, no. He's suddenly not. He's not he can't actually do what he needs to do.
Yep. Agreed. It's
now,
to me.
If he was 100 points cheaper,
sure.
that is something you could fix with points if he was cheap enough.
Yeah, because it is still a monster, and it does still have average enough damage. I mean, monsters on their own, we've talked about it. Non-hero monsters have a challenge in the game.
They should almost never be up over 200 points. A non-hero monster.
Right, unless they just do well, I'm not going to take that position. The position I'll take is that non-hero monsters could earn their place by being very fast or hitting very hard and being reasonable hammers that would actually earn their place. Sure. 300 points of a non-hero monster needs to hit a 450 point monster hero, basically.
Yep.
Okay, something like that. Yep. That's just a rule of thumb, but that's the kind of thing we're talking about here.
Yep, agreed completely.
Because they aren't doing anything else. That's it.
Yeah, they are simply doing damage.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay. And if you make them do something else too much, you get Sons of Babylon. So you got to be careful. Okay. None of which are going to show up in this show, as we'll discuss later. Here's my first pick, Tom. Here's my hero pick. Ready?
Okay,
My hero
good.
pick, the Lord Relictor. Beautiful scroll.
Tell me about why this is a good war scroll then.
Okay, let's talk about the Lord Relictor.
Yep.
The Lord Relictor is a great example of what you can do with simple rules. Okay? Like, I think that there is a predilection that, like, scrolls have to be complicated to be good. And that is just not the case. Okay? This guy, all in all, is a pretty simple scroll. He is a 6-wound hero with a 3-up save, which is strong. Right? But he is a priest. He is strong in his chosen role of being a priest, because he has built-in +1 to chant, which is an incredibly potent ability when you cast on a single d6. Like, that is a very shockingly huge ability. He takes the universal command ability extremely well of High Priest, so he's got some synergistic power, right, as well as functional power in doing his role.
Yep.
He has solid base prayers written on his war scroll, both of which have some use. So he has an actual green bar, like a green beam. He can heal people.
Yeah.
And he has other prayers, mortal wounds, which are generally always good, with a built-in -1 to hit on the backside. Right?
Yeah.
So, functionally, extremely useful in the army. His only downside is, of course, that he's relatively slow. He is a little guy who walks around on foot at like 5 inches, right?
Right. But that's even not bad for a foot hero. Like, I'm running dwarves all the time, which are 4 inches. So
Sure. It's fine. He does have access in Stormcast to a prayer that lets him teleport, so it's whatever, you know. That he casts extremely reliably. So let's not complain about his movement too much. And that's just it. He enables all the strong prayers you would want because Stormcast have good prayers, hence having a good priest has a high value. So whether we're talking about as a role or like what he's doing in the army as a hero is extremely useful. He's survivable in context. And just hyper good at what he does. Right? And that's all on the scroll. The guy does not have a lot of rules. We're talking about basically 2 rules on his scroll. Yeah. +1 to chant, and he has these 2 prayers. That's it. Right? But in context, that's good enough.
Right. And he ends up filling this really weird ability to, like, you can shove him into things and hold them. Like, not that you would do that normally, because he's normally going to be like a general or whatever.
Sure.
But like, he has some really interesting just because of his, like, the meatiness of what he is as a 3-up foot hero. Yep. 6-wound foot hero.
Yeah, it occurred to me that we could have done this whole show simply on Stormcast heroes as contrasts, right? But yeah. I think people might get a little upset. Like, I want to cover more than that. But my point is, you could literally go through the Stormcast hero section. I mean, there's like 40 scrolls, so it's not a stretch. And apply these kinds of like rules and separate them into 2 piles of good and bad.
Right.
Based on good war scrolls, bad war scrolls, based on like how do they work in their role, how functional are they, how modular are they, how do they synergize, do they accomplish what they need to accomplish, right?
Right. I mean, you could do this for the whole everything, right? The entire game. But yes, even with that faction, like there are standouts.
Yeah.
Blades of Corn also strikes me as one that you could do this easily with.
Yeah. Mike said the only thing that sucks about the Lord Relictor is the only way to get him is to either get him off eBay or buy a box set full of things most people will never use. Alternative solution, just kit bash the guy. It's a dude with a hammer and a stick. I promise you it's not hard.
And a banner. A hammer and a banner.
Yeah, like, give him any banner. You just get the new Knight Vexilor. It looks better anyways. Throw a hammer in his offhand, and then, like, snip off the existing banner and put something else up there. Done and dusted.
Well, and do a head swap and just use a skull for the head.
Yeah, just use a regular skull. Boom. Got him. Right? I mean, like, almost all Stormcast heroes are so interchangeable. You can just, like, if you can find any Stormcast hero sculpt, you can make any Stormcast hero out of them. I've made many I've made many a Stormcast hero out of, like, Liberator bodies. Because I had a bunch of extra Liberator bodies and just turned them into heroes with the appropriate accoutrement. Or Space Marines. That also works too. Surprisingly, many of the especially characterful Space Marines will work for you just fine. Okay. And those guys are everywhere.
Yep.
All right, next up, Tom. Your next example. Yeah, Blue Cho 4 says, get a banner, stick a skeleton on it. Done. Yes, exactly correct. There you go. Tell Gore Gruntas. This was your pick, not mine. I just want to say this. Yep. I had a different Iron Jaws item, but I'll talk about it later. Okay. So, talk about Gore Gruntas. What I have written here is good mobility that synergizes with the army ability, good damage that synergizes, becomes great with the army allegiance, and acts as both a hammer and an anvil simultaneously.
I mean, honestly, they're overtuned right now.
Sure.
If their damage was wheeled back, they would still be a top pick for me.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming points, were appropriate. Because the reality is that this unit does something that the rest of the army doesn't do. Right? Which is be a mobile anvil.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that pigs serve a very real function in their army. And they're well pointed, they do good damage, good mobility, it's just banging on all drums. Because it's doing a lot of things that the rest of the army needs it to do. And when you have an army that's basically made up of 3 Warscrolls, right?
Yep.
Your non-heroes are 3 Warscrolls, just like Fire
Correct.
Slayers.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Each one has to stand out and do its own thing. And interestingly, Iron Jaws achieves that.
Yep.
So Gore Grunter is honestly, I could have picked either Brutes or Gore Grunter.
Sure, and honestly, the biggest challenge is that they decided to screw up the perfect balance of Iron Jaws by adding the extra rend to one of the weapons on Gore Gruntas. I would have rated them as a good scroll for basically their entire history. They didn't need the extra Pippa rend. It was stupid to apply it. Wheel it back, GW. Stop ruining your perfect balance. You had it, you nailed it, and then you screwed it up. Way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Because the problem is it knocked off the internal balance, but it doesn't stop these guys from being a good scroll. They very much are. I also agree with you, the Brutes are.
The only one that we could talk about would be Ard Boys, and I think that they have they have an identity crisis, right? But ultimately, Gore Gruntas and or Brutes, they're doing what they need to do within the army, and they synergize well, and
Yeah, if I was going to pick Brutes here, they would have an extra item that the Gore Gruntas don't, which is unique interaction with the game mechanics, right? Yeah, in their ability to stop one wound models from capturing, which is a very interesting and very potent ability that the Brutes carry around with them.
Unique abilities on a war scroll, particularly in an army that doesn't have anything like those abilities, can make war scrolls good.
Yep, absolutely.
So
I like when you see those interesting, unique, flavorful, single unique abilities. Again, could be a very simple war scroll with one unique ability, or 2 things they do this basic thing and a unique ability. Yes,
I will have one of those later. Yeah.
Yep. And so very simple, right? It can be simple and yet still highly effective. So, yeah, I mean, Gore Gruntas to me are the total package. And if anything, it's the problem because they're probably still too cheap compared to
Right. And so I think that, I probably shouldn't have picked them because they're sitting in, Sentinel territory right now. They're
still a good scroll. Again, just because they happen to be underpointed right now, that's the point. You could move the points, and that's the defense. When you think about what's a good scroll, here's the easy way to think about it. Say, if this thing were 10 points more, or 20 points more per take, would I still select it in a lot of armies?
Or would I still consider it and select it,
Yeah. Maybe not every army. Maybe it does make you change up some builds, yada, 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 yada. But would you still see it? And if the answer is yes, you've got a good scroll on your hands, right? Because it can withstand the pressure of going up points.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You would still see Frostheart Phoenixes if they move them up 10 points, 15 points, 20 points. They'd still be worth it for what they do. Okay?
Yeah. Yep. Because nothing else does that.
Right. And it's the same with Gorgruntas, right? If they had moved them to where they should have moved them, they would have still been there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's like a range, a bracket range of points where things still function.
Right.
As like, but the question is like, does it still function as like, does the core chassis of the thing still run?
Right.
Yeah. And if it's in that range of points, the answer is yes.
Yep. That's right. Yeah, it's sort of like you can imagine the little red rangefinder from The Price is Right, right? And it's like, as long as it's somewhere in that space, the unit, you're going to take it. Whereas, again, that rangefinder just doesn't exist for a bad Warscroll. Okay. All right, my pick. Deadwalker zombies, yo.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
No defense, basically, right? I mean, we're talking about something with, like, no save. I mean, sure, they've got a 6-up ward if they're near a hero. Sure. But they have the potential for durability through replenishment / mass wounds, right? That they can be 60 wounds worth of just bodies. / they can replace themselves depending on what they're fighting, right? And they have mobility shenanigans built in. Now, I personally think the nature of 6-inch pylon in the game currently is completely stupid and broken. In the fact that it allows for basically run and charge and retreat and charge, and it's just like this super rule they've bothered to never fix. But that is how it works right now. But even if it didn't work with that stuff, okay, even if it was still, like, imagine they fixed that so that 6-inch pylon didn't work when you ran or retreated, right? And it was just, you can pile in from 6 inches. Yeah?
Yeah. Yep.
It would still be an incredibly good mobility shenanigan and pylon trick, because it would let that huge unit fight, right?
Yeah.
And they have the potential for damage, especially with synergy because of the mortal wounds they kick out, right?
Gorslav and
right. Yeah, so like, Gorslav's a good example of replenishment capabilities. You can give them bonus to attacks through multiple different methods in the army, right, where you're pushing their number of attacks up, or making them pile in and fight twice through, Van Hells, like whatever. You pick your things, right? Command abilities or spells. There are synergies here. They are fundamentally strong on they tick all 3 boxes, right? They have modular power. The scroll as it's written is strong, right? With nothing else going on. Like, it's useful. They have a functional power. They fill a necessary role in Soulblight Gravelords, being a wave of meat in front of the things you don't want to get hit until you can move into position and go fight and pick the fights you want to fight in, right? And they have a synergistic power, right? That is, they have lots of spells and command abilities and other things, Gorslav, that can then increase their capabilities. They tick all 3 boxes. Just like the Gorgruntas, by the way. Right? Same exact story. Right? And so, to me, that's just the humble Deadwalker zombie. I didn't expect it to be such a hot pick, but it came out with a good Warscroll. They're cool. I like the new kit. I think they look good, and they're a good Warscroll. This is how stuff should be written. I think the underlying 6-inch pylon shenanigans should be fixed, but that's not this scroll's fault. That's game mechanics' fault.
I have a box that I need to put together of them.
There you go.
That's one of the potential next new armies for me.
Hey, there you go. All right. Anything else I missed on zombies, or did I catch it all?
No, they're amazing.
As Tom learned, one of the first times he ever fought them, because I played Tom with a 120 zombie army, and it was like Dawn of the Dead. Just
go. Just like bring them on, and. I think he soloed 1 block of 60. It still wasn't enough, but
it wasn't enough. But he did.
Yeah.
Go Trek. A lot of dead zombies around him. All right, your next pick, the Grundstock Gun Hauler. I have written here the perfect counterexample to the steam tank. It has a high mobility, which is in itself its usefulness, frankly. Moderate to low damage, but very functional in its role. Okay. It's an extremely modular piece. Talk to me about the Grundstock Gun Hauler. Why is this such a good Warscroll?
Because show me an army that's not good to put in. Let's just start there. Okay. If I can take this unit and put it in any army, and it still does its thing, that says something. This is not a hero. It's not a monster. It's, and it doesn't have good damage, but it wins games.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so it can be where you need to have a unit to be, obviously full ahead and fly high. But what's so fascinating is that like what you didn't include here is that it actually has a lot of synergy.
Sure.
So in the army that it would fit in, for example, you would see it with you could see it with balloon boys and or the hero that to teleport around with it.
Yep.
It can be battle line in Urbaz. So it can actually end up filling like army composition rules. It guards. It provides a 6-up ward save to frigates and ironclads.
Yep.
And then you can even take an Endrin work in the army to put people inside of it.
Yep.
And so the question David Heron asks is, well, what role does it fill? I would say that it fills 2 roles. One is the primary role is that of objective taker.
Yep. I totally agree. Threat. Objective control threat. Not damage threat, objective control threat.
Right. Because you cannot leave an objective unguarded.
Or minimally guarded.
Or minimally guarded if there's a gun hauler on the table. You just can't. And if you're against a KO army, you doubly can't, because they're going to pick it up with like 7 other troops and delete any like moderately lightly guarded unit.
Yep.
Because 6 riggers hitching on this will come in with like 18 pistol shots, right, on 3s and 4s, -1/1 damage. So like it's and then again, and because it's a utility that this is bringing the synergy with those other models, and so it's just doing lots. And you know what? I have a Fire Slayer army that has 2 of these in it.
Yep, I ran it in my Cities of Sigmar army at NashCon, and it was unbelievably MVP so much of the time, because it was constant threat to just hop around the board. It would be everywhere my opponent did not want it to be.
Right. And like it's functionally a monster. Oh, that's the other thing. It doesn't have a chart.
Right.
So this is a 10 wound monster-ish model, not non-hero, non-monster, that doesn't have a wounds chart. So it has full functionality at no matter what wounds it's at.
Yep. It can always teleport. It can always be this threat. 10 wounds, 1 wound, it's doing the same thing. It's filling its role regardless of there. Right? How many boys fit in the gun hauler? You can bring 7 flying troops with it if they hitch, or if you take the compartment, you can put
5.
5, yeah.
Yep. And so you can fit like 5 Thunderers in there, or one of my favorites is to do like a solo hero, like an Endrin, I'm sorry, not an Endrin, a chemist.
Yep.
To deliver my spell in a bottle, so that the whole army doesn't have to teleport to deliver the spell in the bottle, just one gun hauler. And then, by the way, his mobility is high enough that I hero phase teleport him over there, and then he can just a head full and move back.
Gotcha. Yep. Exactly.
And move 18 inches back. So there's just a lot of options with this thing. Like, yes. It just does all of the things, even though it's low damage. It's 150 some points. Like, but it's it does what it needs to do, and that's the key. Like, do these things serve a purpose? And are like, and if they are used well, and it doesn't have very robust rules either. Like, fly high, and the 6-up ward to other ships are its rules. No, and the a head full.
Yeah,
technically that one,
which is super useful. Like, you and I have both used a head full many a time when the teleport's not going to work, but then all of a sudden this thing rips 18 inches across the table and surprises somebody or whatever. Like, yeah, it gets there.
The other one that I like to use, by the way, we were talking about models to put in there. The chemist Thundrix privateers.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, the
warband,
Underband,
because,
the Underworld's warband.
yeah, because either you can put the whole warband in there, the four dudes, including a Skywarden, and the chemist, or you can actually separate them, put the 4 dudes in there, and then send the chemist to do something else. And there's a nice bit of damage on there. So it's just it has lots of options, and I use the cannon on.
Yeah, agreed.
David.
Yep, agreed. Yeah. This is a complete non sequitur, Tom. This is just totally out of nowhere, but you sparked it in my mind. We played some Soulbound over the weekend. We did a little Soulbound marathon. And in one of the adventures, there's a new archetype and new rules to support it for KO stuff, and you can play a brewmaster like Jacob Bugman's in the 11th, and it's amazing. You get a whole rig for dispensing beer, and it becomes a weapon, and you can give people drinks that soup them up. It's the most cool thing ever.
I have a new character I want to play.
Absolutely. It was the first time I've ever wanted to play a dwarf in a role-playing game. I was like, this guy is so cool. Anyways, yeah, I agree.
Amazing.
Gunhauler it's just such a great example, and when you see it showing up in other armies where it has reduced synergy
and no support,
and that's when you know you've hit something that has good modular utility, right? Because it's good on its own. It's hit that modular power, right?
Yep.
The regular Sky Cannon is what he's talking about because it has the dual fire option.
Yep, like either the long range or the moderate range. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. So my Gunhauler is again, I run 2 of them in my Fire Slayer's arm.
Yep.
So.
All right. Yeah, it's a great pick, and it's such. I love that you had it because it's such a wonderful counterexample to the Steam Tank, right? Because the Steam Tank has instead of fantastic mobility, it has stupid random movement, right? Flying, no flying. Right? Teleporting, no teleporting. It's just whatever. This thing actually does more damage than a Steam Tank, too. But
ouch. Brutal.
Yeah, that is brutal. All right. My next pick. Untamed Beasts.
Weird.
Untamed Beasts. Are they the game's perfect chaff? Are they the platonic form of chaff?
I would argue that I think I might have a better form of chaff, but continue.
Okay, that's fine. Certainly, we must admit they are ideal chaff in the world of chaos, and one of the better examples of the form. They fit the role so well, and this is a vital role, especially in a world of alpha strikes, of alpha bunkering people into their zones where being able to move out into the table to hold and claim territory is so important, right? They deal basically 0 damage and die in bucket loads if they're attacked, right?
Sure.
But they absorb enemy melee super well. They push out the lines through a pregame move, right? So they've got this all-important, very, very powerful pregame move where they can jump out, expand your area, your zone of control, prevent you from being alpha blocked in.
Yep.
And they can also go pin something if they need to because they have run and charge built in. Right?
Yep.
So if they're out there and they go out there, they get out there, then they run. They can just cover an immense amount of ground. Right? And depending on what they're running into, they can tie up a shooting unit or just, whatever. They're just wonderful in this regard. Mark says, I like Iron Golems, similar key role in the army, albeit different. I don't disagree. I think Iron Golems are a good scroll as well. Iron Golems are what Chaos Warriors wish they were, frankly. Because they basically act like Chaos Warriors, but they have these big ogres that have 3 wounds, so if you just get minorly wounded, you can lose 1 model instead of losing multiple models for things like objective control. They're quite tough on their saves. And to trigger their bonus to saves is so very easy. So I think both scrolls could fill that. I just think Untamed Beasts are a slightly better version because of their raw speed and mobility in the pregame move. Yes.
Yeah, that pregame move makes them because it stops some tricks from ever happening.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Where Iron Golems have to face tank that, they can even Untamed Beasts can keep them farther off your line.
Right. Right. Yep. And it's the reason I thought it was so important to include stuff like this, like Untamed Beasts, is because the important part to understand here is they deal basically no damage and cannot take a punch. I cannot make this more clear. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
They have neither offense nor defense, and yet they are still good. Because in my earlier definition, they are so their functional role is so strong. They excel at being chaff, which is a necessary thing, so well, right? That it's a good scroll. So you don't need to have scrolls that it does 1,000,000 damage or can never die or stuff like that. Like a well-balanced breakfast, as it were, wants some junk and that it can just be there to die or to be deck chair sitters or whatever, right? And this thing does that better than almost anything else.
True.
Right.
It's true.
Okay. All right.
I hope you ordered my scrolls in the right order. I'm interested to see what you put next.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Canary. That's what I put next. Yeah. I was trying to go for themes, Tom, so...
Yes, good. No, I appreciate it, because for me, it's funny that you picked Untamed Beast as your perfect chaff, because for me, I think Canary are the perfect chaff.
Sure. I just want to shout out Tristan in the chat, who said, hey, don't forget to hit that like button. We've made it an hour and a half into the show, and I haven't said it yet. Hit like! Subscribe, do all that fun stuff, hit buttons, it's fun, just like it says up there. Okay, go Tom, Canary.
So Canary, so let's talk about why I like them as chaff, okay? So let's say that you're only buying these for single function.
Sure.
Which is chaff. They're a high mobility unit.
I would call them extreme mobility. Between their ambush and extremely high move speed, fly, and their move after action.
They're shooting or melee. Yes. Yep. But what's so fascinating is they're cheap. They're on par with the types of costs that you're going to spend with Untamed Beasts, right? They're 90 points, 95 points.
Sure.
They're on a 5-up save because of their shields, right? They're still 5-up.
In combat.
I'm not imagining. Yeah, in
they're
combat.
6-up base, 5-up in combat. Well, I mean, they get +1 in combat.
5-up in combat. But so if you come into them, they can actually feasibly have a 4-up save, which is not something that Untamed Beasts can have.
I don't think they can anymore.
Who?
Canary. I don't think they can go that far. I mean, if you're talking about for purposes of ignoring Rend, sure.
No, I think it flat say it doesn't. It's not a +1 to save on those shields. The shields just set the save to 5+, I believe. We can check that on the Warscroll, but I'm pretty sure that's how it's currently functioning. But they also have a 6-up after save, so even though it's 5 wounds, they may actually survive that. But more egregiously, every 6-up armor save kicks back mortals. So, if a hammer hits this with 100 attacks, all of that gets rolled. And even though they're going to obliterate as chaff, they're going to kick back a bunch of mortals. They're actually going to do something even as they die. Okay? Now, I've only taught, and they're only 5 models, so you can stretch them out in a line and not worry about
They have old-style coherency, yes.
Yeah. And they have a 40 mil base, so a 5 models more at 40 mil bases actually are going to cover the same space as 10 models.
By the way, I'm correct. They're 6-up base.
Are they 6-up base? Yeah. Now, does the shield give them a 5-up base? Or
no, it just adds 1 to save rolls.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that changed since the last time I played them. But I've only talked about using them as chaff.
Sure. But of course, part of the interesting thing about Canary, both flavors, is that they have roles far beyond that. Because they can be ambushed, they can act like the gun hauler does and be objective threat, because they're up in the sky just waiting to come down. And potentially, Heartrenders can do enough damage to pick off a lightly guarded objective, or just or float onto an objective in either case, depending on their shoot or charge. Like they shoot at a unit, there's one hero on it. He's counting as 2. They drop, they shoot, they don't kill the guy, they get the 4 up, they float 6 inches forward. They're 5 models, he's 2 models. You take the objective. Ta-da.
Yeah,
right.
like life takers receive buffs so well.
Yes, these guys have incredible synergy. They have good damage base, but they can go to like pretty outrageous damage if you decide to point your Daughters of Cain, like our powers combined, buff matrix at them, right?
Yep.
I mean they're multifunctional.
And like they force the enemies to make potentially bad decisions, because in the activations, right? Like if you have a set of melee harpies in combat, you're going to force them to attack them first. Otherwise, you might float away, and they may never get to touch them.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. One of the extreme value of life takers is like they force bad combat decisions, because if you get into them, and you don't pick them, and then they get a chance to fight, then all of a sudden they can just be like, "Ha, got you, bye." Right.
And they would be even better if there was a canary hero to go with them.
Sure.
But
who would undoubtedly make their float away like go to a 2-up? That would be his ability.
Yes, that is it would be a command ability that lets them re-roll the 4-up.
They just make it a 2-up. Come on now. That's what would happen.
Or you can just like you auto run 6. You can spend the command point and auto succeed.
Sure.
But I say that to say I love this unit.
Mm-hmm.
This unit just does so many things. I think it is a beautifully wonderful Warscroll, and it's deceptive because people look at it and go, "Oh, it's 5 wounds on or 100 points or 90 points or whatever," and they're just not looking at everything else it's doing.
Yep. No, I agree.
So.
And again, it ticks all those boxes, right? There's modular power to them in what they can do simply through ambushing and through their mobility. There's functional power in them in their ability to play as chaff or objective threat or whatever, right? And their synergistic power in that they take a bunch of buffs.
Well, yeah, no, that's true.
Yep.
So that's one of my picks, and that's my counter, or that's my companion pick to your Untamed Beast.
Sure. Yep. All right. To continue on, my next pick, Tom, is Morathi. It's just Morathi. Okay? It's just Morathi.
Sure. No, I mean, Morathi's a good pick. Just about almost at any point value, Morathi's a good pick. I hate to even say that.
Sure. Right now, she's 660 or whatever she is, whatever nonsense they ever pointed at right now. And I'm like, man, I'd pay 700 for her happily. No question, I would. And that right there tells you everything you need to know, right?
Yeah.
She's strong offense, strong mobility. She has this extremely unique defensive ability. And a lot of people hate that defensive ability. Her whole, you can't take more than 3 wounds a turn thing. I don't.
Well, there's nothing else in the game that does it.
Absolutely there isn't. And I like it. I think it's great that she has it. I think the Iron Heart of Cain is awesome. Like I said, I think truly the only issue with her right now is that her points are wrong, but that has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Right.
She is a good Warscroll in everything you'd want it to be. She does have a busted command ability. That should probably be fixed. But even if they fixed it to melee only, I'd still like her. Okay? But I'm dealing with the scroll as she is right now.
Right.
And
yeah.
I have the reason I like. Everybody likes the concept of a unique rule. Everybody's always like, "Oh, the old Wrathmonger rule is so cool." Some people have mentioned Wrathmongers. Okay, and yeah, hey, I love the old Wrathmonger scroll. I thought it was great. Right. I wish they had never gotten rid of that rule. I think it was absolutely silly to get rid of that super unique unit.
Yeah.
But you've got to be careful with things like that.
Right.
What I mean by that is I love a good, unique, interesting rule.
Yeah.
But you can't have every army have every unit full of unique, weird rules that are just totally game-busting. Right? Yep. Or just... Yep. Some people just need 6s or mortal wounds. Or whatever. Okay.
Yep.
And so having this one model in the game with her defensive ability, I don't have an issue with her because, again, she still basically dies at the bottom of 2, top of 3 every game I've ever seen her in or I've played against her, because, like, if you have the capability, you just deal 3 wounds to her every turn, right?
Like that. Like your job is to make sure that she is always taking three wounds,
right?
And then ignore her. Like you do no more and no less,
right? And it's not as though, like, it's hard to win a game other than Apex Predators on the back of Marathi alone, right?
Right.
But she's certainly a powerful piece within your larger force.
And when you combine her with snakes.
Yeah. I mean, her problem right now that makes her... honestly, I don't think her problem is the I only take 3 wounds thing. Her problem is her stupid command ability is out of bounds.
Yes,
right?
I agree.
Like, that's her problem. Fix the command ability so it's not dumb like it is now, and we can have a conversation, right? And then we can find the right points for her and blah, blah, blah. But to me, I love a piece like this, a god piece like this, having a unique role while still filling a very clear role, right? Yeah. She's an incredibly fast, incredibly offensive piece who can get in there and do work and also support the army as a spellcaster at the same time, right? Yep. Heywo said I haven't cracked the code on Marathi yet. Heywo, it's Blood Vultures, baby. You just send the Blood Vultures after her. That's all you got to do, man. Get them blood, like, you ain't playing enough Blood Vultures. That's the problem.
Peck.
That's right. But no, I understand. If you don't have any kind of ability to project power, she will live longer, and that's challenging, right?
Yep.
But yeah, I think she is a great, like, we could have a broader conversation. Again, we've separated out the good for the game conversation from just a good war scroll. What we mean here is, like, powerful, useful utility. You'll see it in armies, you want to play it, right? There's a separate conversation about what's good for the game, and that's totally fair. You can have good war scrolls that are bad for the game.
Yep.
But to me, she's everything I want in a good war scroll, because when I look at her, I understand what she's supposed to do. I understand how she fits into the army. I understand how she's, you know what I mean? Like, just, she's, again, ticking every box. She creates synergy. She's modularly powerful. She functionally fills a role. She's doing all 3 things.
I don't know that I would ever build a Doc army without Marathi, ever.
That's probably a negative. Like, that's a strike against her being good for the game. Like, that'd be an easy way. That's sort of a good litmus test for, is it good for the game? If you say something like that, it's probably a no, right?
No, I mean, I get that. That's true. But for me, like, her ability is just so unique in what it enables that I just can't imagine not running her.
Yeah, sure. Somehow, yet again, she snaked out of getting a points adjustment, but here we are.
It's okay. I gotta hand it us for.
Sure. Okay. All right. So, anyways, yeah. There you go. That's Marathi. I suspect my wife is going to come down at some point here.
With dogs.
Yeah, I can see her in the chat. All right, your example, Tom. Phoenix Guard.
Yep.
Like, the appraisal here is pretty straightforward. Solid anvil, performs this role very well through their word save. Good in an attrition fight, can do enough damage, especially with synergy.
Well, not only enough damage, they're like 3s and 3s neg 1/1. Like, they're doing, and they also have 2-inch reach on 25 mil bases.
Yes, this is where I want to have the base conversation. I saved the base / reach thing for these guys because I knew it was going to enable them. But go ahead, hit me.
And so everybody's getting in with this unit, and they're 2 attacks a model. So they are amazingly fighty. I don't think people understand how fighty Phoenix Guard are until they go against a unit at 10 and get like a 12 wound monster cut down.
Sure, although it's
Because
obviously Neg 1 Rend is what it is in the current world. Admittedly, if you walk into a save stacked hero, you are stuck, but sure.
right, but who is save stacking against Phoenix Guard? That's the point. This is an anvil, not a hammer.
Sure, I understand.
And so, what I would say is that, and there, it's a simple Warscroll.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 6-up save, or I'm sorry, a 4-up base save. They have a 4-up ward, and they're battle shock. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is my example of just good bones on a Warscroll. And so that is my vote. I love.
Hello, dear.
I love Phoenix Guard.
Yes. Like, I agree. Like, the trick is, as well, remember, they are fitting in with the earlier hero that we mentioned, right? They are synergizing well, like we talked about synergistic power. Come up.
Yep.
There you go. Yes. Hi.
Like and subscribe.
We mentioned that the Frostheart Phoenix is quite good and has a lot of synergy with them. Putting them on rerolling wounds, a rare buff that they still retain, making them immune to battle shock, which helps them perform their be an anvil role even better, right? Because what you want to do is be able to just sit there and not worry about them. So the two of them together are even stronger, right?
Yeah, and I believe that the bubble target doesn't ever target them, so they don't receive that command. Like, that's all the
it's within X inches of the Frostheart. Yeah.
Phoenix, yes. So they don't receive a command when that command ability is used. So technically, you could do that and all-out assault.
Mm-hmm.
So you could put them on like 2s and then 3s rerollable.
Yep.
Which is pretty filthy.
Yes, hit like for the dogs. Make sure you reward my wife's hard work there of corralling all the monsters.
So that's what I would say, is I'm a fan of these. Like, again, this is a very solid, simple Warscroll. It would see more play if it was a little bit cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're pointed correctly, is my honest answer, because they're the definition of frustrating to play against. Right. In that they perform this anvil role so unbelievably well. Oftentimes you'll fight, like, if you're up against a unit of 20 of these things, you just sit there and fight them and you're like, what is going on? I feel like I should be making progress. These are tiny little elves. Why aren't they dying?
And heaven forbid that there's a life swarm on the table.
Yeah, sure, exactly, right? So again, functional power in their role, right? Excellent anvil. One of the better infantry anvils in the game. I would argue not as good as the one I'm about to talk about, but good. And, good in attrition fights, synergize well with other units, so on and so forth, right? Again, checking all of those boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Here's mine, Tom. Plague Bearers. Oh, yeah, baby. This is my anvil pick, okay?
Oh, okay, go.
Because this is 20 wounds. Right now that I'm getting out of this unit. Now, given their 6-up, 5-up, not as good of a save profile, I openly admit. Okay. Now,
yeah, not as good as 4s and 4s.
Yeah, hey, totally fine. Points aren't part of the discussion, but I would point out that right now these are cheaper. Okay.
Oh, they are. Yep.
These are also good in an attrition fight. Because their damage just comes through mortal wounds. Like, fighting them gives you 3 to 4 mortal wounds a turn. That's what happens. Okay?
Yep.
So, over the course of a battle round, taking 6 to 8, doubled 12 to 10, if you fight them for 2 full battle rounds, which is not unusual in a brick of 20, right?
Yep.
You're taking 12 to 16 mortal wounds on your unit, right?
Yep.
That's a lot. Most units can't withstand that. Certainly the Phoenix Guard can, but the anvil against anvil fights are always the worst. Okay?
Yep. And let me just say, Phoenix Guard would cut these dudes down in a fight because they would shear off their base save.
Yeah, I don't know. They don't really need the 6-up is my honest answer. I think you'd be surprised.
And they'd throw 20 attacks out.
Yeah, I understand. It's fine.
Yeah.
But at any rate, I love Plague Bearers. I think they hit all the right notes. they're synergistic with. There's actually a lot of good synergy opportunities. Certainly, Plague Bearers have more synergy opportunities in the overall army, which is one of the reasons I really like when you think about Scrivener or Bile Piper or other demon interactions. The fact that there is a spell that exists in this army that can turn them into 3-wound Plague Bearers, right? Which is truly, truly obnoxious at that point.
Yes.
When they go to 3 wounds, they're unmovable for the most part.
That 20 block is untouchable.
Right. Because it's got, at that point, it's suddenly, we're talking about 60 real wounds, 90 effective wounds. It's nonsense. It's just nonsense. Right. I think Plague Bearers are a perfect example of how to write a battle line anvil. Right. They do something simply by existing and holding up the enemy in a very good way, while also slowly chewing them down, right? And interestingly, let's have the talk about base size versus reach.
Oh yeah,
right?
this is such a contrast, right, between these two units,
right? Because I thought these two examples would be good to counterpoint this, right?
Yep.
And the fascinating part about it to me is that Plague Bearers, by all accounts, have the worst base to reach version, right? They're 32-inch bases, or 32-inch, goodness sakes. They're 32 mil bases with a 1-inch reach. Yep.
Yeah. So you're going to get like 5 of them into combat.
It depends. You can do the little bougie thing, and have all 10 people fight. Like, it's possible. They make mini mag trays for it, right?
Sure.
But taken, it's a worse profile, right? 32 with a 1-inch reach is generally a bad profile. What's interesting is that it's a bad profile for hammers, right?
Right.
Where you need to be able to apply the unit's damage. Like, compare it to Phoenix Guard, who are 2-inch reaching on a 25 mil base, so they basically all fight every time.
Always. Like,
right?
Always. Like, if they're in combat, everybody's fighting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, the fascinating part about that, to me, right, is that they could keep doing, they could do 1-inch reach 32 mil units that are playable.
Yeah.
Right?
Not Volkites, but they probably exist.
No, these guys are it, right? My point is, if it were to be chaff, I don't care. It might actually be advantageous to be on a bigger base. I don't care. It's not going to fight. If it's a pure anvil, and I'm not worried about it doing damage through swinging its weapons, as I'm most certainly not with Plague Bearers, right? Right. Then it's fine. The problem is they keep writing hammer units with 1-inch reach on a 32 mil base, or any of the other base bad 1-inch combinations. Whatever. Like there's a bunch of these where they'll give, Bulgor or something a 1-inch reach, which is so stupid and insane. Whatever. You can pick your thing, right? But my point is, it's the hammer units that feel the pain.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're not in that role, who cares?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's fine. Like you can get away with it. So yeah. Doesn't 32 make coherency more painful too? Sort of. It depends. It does, is the answer. Yeah, yes, there is a difference, no doubt, because 25 mil people can touch each other and just be in a solid line, and you can do that kind of nonsense. But it's not as though a 32 mil infantry unit isn't the worst to maintain for coherency. I'll say
let's be very clear. It's not cav with a 1-inch reach.
Yeah, right. Sure. Yeah, I was being temperate there, Tom, because we know there are worse. Right?
Yes, there are worse combos, which are cav units with 1-inch reach,
or 50 mil base guys with 1-inch reach who want to be in 6 units of 6, 3/6
ogres.
Right.
Ogres.
Yeah, ogres being a great example.
Yeah.
Where they're clearly intended to be hammers, and the base rules of the game have just said, no, you can't be a hammer. Just you gotta waste half your points in your unit or something, or 2/3, or a third of the points in your unit, whatever. Right. Okay. So, anyways, Plague Bearers. Again, perform their role well. Modularly useful, synergize with a lot of other things. Okay.
Okay. I'll allow it. I am not as taken by them as a excellent war scroll. Let me just say that. I think that they are on the lower end of that excellent war scroll. Although I understand why you picked them.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're talking about good war scrolls. Good. I picked good, right? Intentionally. Yeah. You can't tell me these guys wouldn't fall into good war scroll. Like, in that category. Sure, you can argue about where they fall in that place. I'm not saying they're near the tippy top. But you cannot tell me they wouldn't be in a good war scroll. There's no way.
No, I mean they're not Nurglings.
People are really coming around on Nurglings, by the by.
I know they are.
Yeah.
They'll play them a couple times.
I might have to make some little Nurgling bases for my burgeoning Nurgle army, I guess. All right. Okay.
Fine. They're not plague drones then.
I see you want to throw hands. Look, we're not going to have that discussion again. Okay. I have one last example, then we go into the bonus round, Tom. You ready?
Okay, sure.
Because I really wanted to get this guy in here because, again, he was, one, because he's on the thumbnail, and two, because he's such an interesting use case. Kairos Fate Weaver. Okay? Good spellcaster, makes excellent use of allegiance abilities, and he has one of the most uniquely powerful control elements in the game in his change die.
He does.
Right. So, Kairos is an interesting example to me. What I thought was interesting about Kairos is Morathi's rule is also a unique thing. Like, again, Kairos is a one-off in the game. Nobody else does exactly what Kairos does. Right? There are people who can like change die facings and stuff, usually for their own roles. Whatever.
Right. But he's one that cheats. Just like that's what his rule is.
He just straight up cheats. Right? That's his rule. His rule is once a game, cheat. Right? Not to mention the fact that he has good access to a different mechanic that is also cheating, which is Destiny dice, right?
That's many times per game you cheat on one of your dice.
Right, like 9 times per game you can cheat on your dice, 1 time per game you can cheat on their dice, yeah. But what was fascinating to me about Kairos, as I thought about this, was, Morathi's ability is sort of theoretically always on.
Right.
And there's this very direct cost to it. She can only take 3 wounds, but she can never heal under any circumstances. No way, no how, forget about it, it can't happen. So every wound she loses is just, that's ticking down, it can never tick back up.
Right.
Okay. Right. But it's always on. Kairos is interesting because his ability isn't, like, ever present, but the threat of the ability is ever present. It's this once-a-game thing that is so potent and so frightening and so powerful, right, in what it can accomplish, that it can be the fulcrum on which a game turns, right, when played properly.
That one charge that you needed is not there.
Tick.
That one spell that you needed to go off is not there, or is now a miscast.
Tick. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so he's fascinating to me because, for a couple reasons. He's very unusual in the good War Scroll section because his, like, functional power of what he does in the role, it's fine. He's a good spellcaster. I purposely said good spellcaster, not great, not amazing, not spell dom. I mean, he's good, right? Don't get me wrong. Flipping your low die to match your high die ain't nothing. Okay?
Right.
But, it is what it is. He's a good spellcaster. He has a very strong spell, admittedly, that wants to be best friends with Portal. But he's not incredibly defensive. He's not incredibly, if you put him in melee, he's kind of in trouble. you know. So, you know, when I think about him, he is modularly powerful, but it's almost completely on the back of the spell on his War Scroll and his unique control element, his dice change, right? It's not as though he truly synergizes with a ton of stuff. I mean, he makes good use of Tzeentch's Allegiance ability, certainly.
Right, and all the spells, right?
Yeah,
because he's magic.
Sure, because he's magic, and they have a lot of magic crap, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, he's just interesting in that his thing, once a game, will work, will change something important about the game.
Right.
Right?
And if it's used right, it can be like game winning.
Right. Yeah, and so he was just an interesting example to me of again, how oftentimes one unique rule can define a good scroll. Right?
Yeah.
And there's certainly a points cost you wouldn't play Kairos. 700 points, 600 points, 5, whatever. You know, it doesn't matter. Like, there's some... Yeah. Obviously, there's a points cost where he stops getting played.
Right.
But it's interesting to me that he's not only valuable in his own army, but he's also such a critical part of something like Legion of the First Prince, where he walks over and somehow synergizes better. Not with any rule written necessarily on a scroll.
You're already playing counter spells, and now you're adding Force of Will.
Exactly. So, yeah, no, exactly, Tom. That's the perfect way to put it. What was fascinating to me about Kairos, as I thought about him, especially going over to Legion, and the nature of synergy, is that this normal way we think about synergy is pretty straightforward. It's the Seraphon, Skink, or Doc thing where it's like, this type of unit gets this bonus and this bonus and this bonus and this bonus, and it's, you know, direct game rule interactions.
Yeah.
Target Skink unit gains run and charge, mortal wounds on, or, you know, does 1 mortal wound on a wound roll of a 6, whatever.
Yep.
Kairos' synergy in Legion of the First Prince is almost completely thematic synergy. Right? Where his function and what he's doing fits so well with something like Be'lakor or the Khorne Demon Prince or whatever, like the general thing that the army is often going for. They're not always. We're going to do a Legion of the First Prince show sometime soon, by the way.
Yeah.
That is his form of synergy.
Right. It's what he's doing is functionally like he's adding another counterspell to your hand.
Yeah.
Because you already have 2 ways to control the enemy. Now you have 3.
Right.
And if one doesn't work, then another one might work. And if that doesn't work, then you always can fall back on his.
Right. Yep.
So it just gives you one more opportunity to say no to the enemy.
Yep.
Is what Legion of the First Prince is doing.
Yep. So,
and
yeah.
For anybody that's played Magic, it's very frustrating to play a true blue player.
Of course. All right. I was just reminded of the most ridiculous series of Magic games I ever played in my life back in like '97 down at our old college house. I don't think you were around, but I'll tell you about it some other time. All right. So, bonus round. These are just quick items for discussion that I wanted to include a few more. I did put Sentinels on here. Modular synergy, like modular and synergy, and they're just busted. They do both too well. What's written on their scroll then combines with what they can synergize with to create a busted unit, right?
And they're wizards. Like,
yeah.
Here's the reality. Like, I threw them in my Settlers Gain army.
Yeah.
With 0 synergy.
Sure.
0. No synergy. They did great. like you know what I needed? I just needed them with the other units. I actually didn't use almost any allegiance abilities in my entire army.
Right.
It was literally just units.
Yep. Complete modular
the
power.
Allegiance ability. Right. It was complete modular power. Works pretty good. Sentinels, pretty good Warscroll apparently.
Sure. Tyler S., do you think that GW would be able to better balance their game and create more unique and interesting Warscrolls if they moved away from the D6 system? No, not necessarily. You can do something on a d6. You can do something on other dice types. Other dice types do allow for interesting curves and variants. There is value to it, but the problem is you can't do it. Warhammer cannot be on any other die but a d6 ever. It can't, because as silly as it sounds, certain ephemera becomes over time embedded in the core identity of a thing, and you cannot violate that without people saying it's not that thing anymore.
Right, and like it's D&D and D20s.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly. Yes. Right. Like that's the problem. Like games will in sort of the big theory of game design. There's this last step that's ephemera, which should be the least important thing. But the challenge is that ephemera over time, because it's the thing players touch the most, becomes
it solidifies and becomes concrete.
Yeah, becomes sort of the foundational elements of how they view the game. So, anyways, the point is, yes, maybe, not necessarily, but it will never matter. It will never happen.
Because they will look at that and go, "That's not Warhammer."
Right. Not just them. The audience as a whole would look at it and say it's not Warhammer, like in mass. All right. Orgoth's Demon Spew, homie. I picked him. You could have picked any of the Magath Lords. Pure modular power.
I mean, yeah.
Right?
I love all of them. Like, I know that Vince is like, don't build all three in an army. I tried so hard.
Yeah,
I tried so hard.
It's a trap.
They're just so fun.
Admiral Akbar did warn you.
He did indeed. But I agree. Man, I love those. I love those dudes.
Yeah, I just think they're a perfect example of both filling a functional role while also being modularly powerful.
Yep.
At the same time. They are a good Warscroll. You read them, you get what they're supposed to do, they do that thing well, and they don't require support to do it. Perfect. Right? Like they are good as defined. Like, again, GW has started to get... One of the things I've been very happy with over the recent books, for the most part. This isn't always true. There's a couple exceptions recently. But for the most part, GW's gotten real good at figuring out the 300-point hero mark. Right? And, like, what does a 300-point hero need to do, look like, feel like, to earn its keep? Right?
Yep.
Yeah, so there you go. Functional power. Hammer, fulminators. Do we need to say anything else? Right?
No, they're fulminators are really good.
Yeah, sure. Because why are they the best one of all of them? Because what I want out of this unit is a hammer.
And they do the job the best.
Like, that's it, folks. There's nothing else to it. Like, I know maybe there's a way to, like, play with the points of concussors versus, fulminators versus desolators or whatever the other ones are called. I don't know all the other ones. So that, like, there's some kind of reasonable choice there. But my answer is, I'm not sure that's true.
Yeah.
Now, maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I need to think about it. Probably for, like, one or two of them, there is. But there's just going to be some that don't work like that. When you have so many units that are so similar, but one is so clearly excelling at the role it was intended for, it's just going to be the choice. Like, would I assume there's a 20-point gap between fulminators and the other ones. Am I still buying fulminators? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, how about if there's like a 50-point gap? All right, maybe now I'm going to take concussors, who are the next one down, right? For doing damage.
Right. Or even the Evo kitties. Like, I wonder if Evo kitties don't suddenly become an option there.
Right. Like, it's just a question of like, sure, I could price the fulminators out of the market.
Right. But as per
which would then make me fall down
right.
to the next best option. Right? I'll take the less good concussors because you've priced fulminators out of the market.
Right.
You put fulminators at 300 and concussors at 210. Okay, well now it's not worth 90 points, right?
Right.
But if there's a small difference, I will pay 20 points more because points are ephemeral and don't really matter, and 20 points doesn't really matter, and 40 points in my overall list doesn't actually matter. It just doesn't. I know it doesn't. I can prove it doesn't because people win with 1960-point lists all the time. Many 5-0 tournaments have been taken with 1960 lists. And they didn't win that game solely based on that once-a-game triumph.
That would be a wonderful statistic to explore. Is where winning lists, where do they fit on the points scale, and are there any trends?
Right. But my point is, we all know it's happened a ton, right? And so 40 points doesn't matter. It just doesn't.
Right.
So I'm willing to pay the 40 points.
Some armies, it doesn't.
Yeah, again, unless we're talking about an edge case where it's like it enables a list or it doesn't, right? My point is, in the raw of you have 2,000 points, I have 1,960 points. As long as we've both built the list we think is good and we are functionally doing what we want, you have no actual advantage over me because you got 40 more points in your list. We all know that's true, right? So you're not going to adjust fulminators 20 points up or something and yay, now we fixed it, I'm going to go take stupid desolators or whatever. No, I'm not. I'm absolutely not. I'm going to keep taking fulminators because I'm paid for a hammer. I want a hammer. That's what I'm here for. Fungoid Cave Shaman is my last pick there, Tom. Functional power.
That's a bold pick.
Utility. Now,
I see that.
I think this guy meets it. He's a little caster.
Would you ever put him in your Iron Jaws army?
Many people do. I don't because I don't want. But that's not because of his rules. That's because one, I don't like spellcasters in my Iron Jaws army. Two, I definitely don't want weedy little runts in my army. Now, I did convert one for my army, Tom. I do have one that I painted. But I would never actually play him. I just did it as a fun little project to paint a goblin because I like painting goblins. But
okay.
But that's a complete aesthetic thing. My Iron Jaws army is meant to be all armored lads.
Sure.
Again, he's got a built-in 4-up ward. He can give you bonus command points.
Yep.
Once a game, he can double cast.
Yep.
Right? It's quite a frame of what he's doing there. And he's priced probably pretty correctly for that. He is a good ally in a lot of destruction forces because he's adding a lot of utility to what you want to do in those armies. I would like to suddenly cast more spells or to have an extra command point on a relatively tiny little survivable hero. I would point out the dude is so small, it's relatively easy to hide him behind anything you want as well. Right? That dude, if you're playing on tables with real terrain, that dude should be very hard to target most times.
Yeah, unless your enemy has sentinels.
Sure. Yeah, of course. See previous comment about busted. So yeah, I think the Fungoid Cave Shaman is a good war scroll. Now, overall, there are, and that's the reason I wanted to end on him was because there are good war scrolls in otherwise quote unquote bad armies.
Yeah.
Right? Gitz has a trash win rate right now.
Yeah, and legitimately so. Because a lot of their core units don't have an identity.
But
blocks of 60 Gits don't do anything, and they're hard to use, and they don't actually accomplish any of the things that you would want a 60 model unit to do. Right. Now, Sigvald and the army is now also hamstringed by reinforcement points. Right.
Sigvald is a good example of a good war scroll in an otherwise bad army. Right.
Sure. With a unique ability.
Yep. Right. So these things exist. If I didn't put your army up here, this is not meant to be the exhaustive list, folks, of all good war scrolls.
These are just representative. When we talk, so when you hear us talk on the show about something being a good war scroll, this is what we're talking about. This is helping frame what we're doing.
Right. Yep. So, if we didn't happen to pick one from your army, it does not mean your army is bereft of good war scrolls. Certainly not. It just means that, again, I cut this to good. I didn't want to get into, a tier system of, all this and really break it out and start saying, what it and go through, 8,000 war scrolls, right, or whatever.
And the things that make stuff excellent war scrolls are it's the combination of all these factors plus then points that are they're aggressively pointed.
Sure.
Right? Like that's what pushes things up into that higher tier, like Sentinels. They were a good war scroll that was super aggressively pointed. The problem is that like because points shift around so much, like things dropping from like an excellent war scroll to a good war scroll is a regular occurrence.
Right. And as well, then that's where we get into the conversation about good scroll, good for the game, blah, 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 right? Clearly things that are, that's where you get into the efficiency play. But what I was concerned with here is, where is the meat good, right? The bones of the thing.
Yeah.
Because if you've got good bones, you've got a good, like if the scroll is good, then we can find a points where it'll work at. Yep. Right?
Yep.
SJ Arcade, is that real? Is that the actual number? That seems low, but all right, I'll take your word for it. It said 764 war scrolls. It feels small, but I'll take your word for it. Yeah, I think that, you know, when I look around at these types of units, what I see is that as it stands right now, the most common thing that tips you, we talk about what makes you fall off of this string now that we've done this, like you're walking this tightrope. What makes you fall off? The most common occurrence to me as I was looking through was when you are effectively a duplicate unit that does the same role less well.
Right. That's a great, like, and so you just talked about fulminators versus all of the other units.
Yeah. Yep.
They're all doing the same thing functionally. Just one of it does it better than everything else. Mm-hmm. If that's the case, that's the winner. The others don't get played.
Right. It's just that easy. And it was fascinating to me how often I was finding that happening where, oh, it's clear this is the good war scroll. Right? And then here are the 1, 2, 3 others.
Yeah. That
are just worse versions of that thing.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean you are dead on, and in fact, like I think that this haunts a lot of armies.
Yeah.
Like cities, I think is the most egregious version of it.
100% yes.
Because when you go to cities, you're like, well, what do I want as my tank unit? You know, and there's like a bunch of if-then questions. Are you running a Phoenix? If no, then Phoenix Guard aren't your tank unit.
Right.
If yes, that's who your tank unit is.
Right.
And then, but the reality is that then you get into like, okay, well then I'm gonna run it. You know, gonna run Eternal Guard, or whatever. Like, or I'm gonna run Iron Breakers, or I'm gonna run, yeah.
Right. And so it's like that was the number one cause. The number two cause was when I looked at a unit and there was a clear mismatch between whatever the designers thought the role was supposed to be,
yep, and
whatever the role actually is.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
This you see a lot, where it's like, oh, they thought this was a hammer unit, but it's just a bad hammer. Right? There might not be a good hammer in the army in that same points category, unit size, whatever. They're just functionally bad at their thing. Right?
Right.
You know, they don't fill any actual role. They're a bad hammer. Right. They have no mobility. They're bad at defense. They're too expensive to be chaff, or they're not mobile enough to be chaff, or there's nothing special about them as chaff. Right? Like they can't even meet the B bodies that just stand around bar.
Yeah.
Right? They just don't do anything. It is shocking to me, the number of scrolls that seem to, I guess, be thought of as hammers. Like, oh, what they'll do is do some damage. No. You calc out their damage, and it's like the average damage of this unit is 2.2. And I'm like, man, you're not a hammer. The test came back. You are not a hammer. Right? Yep. And so those two things made people fall off of this chart very fast.
Right.
Now, I want to talk about Sons of Behemoth a little bit here at the end, as I mentioned we would talk about it. Right? Yeah. Sons of Behemoth, I really struggle with this, but here's my take on them, Tom.
Yeah.
For the most part, Sons of Behemoth are bad War Scrolls. That's my answer.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
The War Scrolls of SOB are bad. They just are.
Yep.
The thing that they do is they absorb Mightier makes Rightier.
Yes. Yes. Their allegiance is what makes them awesome. Like it was I was trying to do the Fit the Gatebreaker in my Death Night Haunt stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the
and
only
I just
exception
couldn't ever-
might be the Gatebreaker, by the way, because he actually can be a hammer. Right? He actually
But even
does do
then-
damage.
Even then, like it just wasn't ever. Like I was never happy with how it ended up.
Sure, I get it. I mean, that being said, people have used Gatebreakers in lots of armies, and I understand why. Because, like, Gatebreakers are arguably a hammer. Right? They actually can fight their way out of Wet Paper Bag, which cannot be said for Kraken Eaters and War Stompas. Okay.
Sure.
And so, it's... I couldn't defend them as good War Scrolls. I wish they were. I wish they had made them unique and good War Scrolls, where they were interesting to play.
Yeah.
Right? But they didn't. They made them milquetoast War Scrolls that do not much interesting and rely on an overpowered allegiance ability to become oppressive DPS checks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And that's my problem with them. They are a strange example because it feels like they should be good. It feels like they should be good given how that army performs.
Yep.
But they're just not. On scroll, they're not. Right? It's just that easy. Yeah, so there you go. All right, anything else? What else is there anything else we didn't talk about? I think we covered most of it all.
Yeah, I think we got through it.
Right on. All right, everybody. Well, there you go. That's our take on good War Scrolls, some good War Scrolls, and what makes them good. So, just remember, many War Scrolls cannot be fixed by points and will never really be valuable outside of, you like the unit, so you take a suboptimal choice because it's fun, which I support completely, by the by. And what GW needs to do is think a lot more about, functional roles, modularity, and when they invoke linear design, how far they go with it to make things punch too far above their weight to make them impossible to point. They should think about these things more and design scrolls like the ones we've talked about here. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I had an idea for a couple shows that we could do sometime.
Oh, okay. Well, good.
So,
I mean, we can certainly do the inverse of this, but we already did. I think we did, a long time ago, we did, the 10 worst War Scrolls in the game.
Yeah, I remember that.
And, we hadn't framed it, the same way we did this, because I don't think we put the same sort of first principles around it.
Right. But the first principles help give shape to this entire conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And so...
That's exciting.
Yeah, indeed.
We might be talking about these things more in the future, folks.
Indeed. So, there you go. That's our take on good War Scrolls. What are the ones we missed? What are your picks for good War Scrolls? Put them down in the comments. I want to know. I want everybody to discuss what they think are good War Scrolls that we didn't talk about. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Get out there, play some games, paint some models, do all that stuff. Really appreciate it. As always, we thank you very much for watching. And we'll see you next Wednesday.